right, welcome back to this episode of Riding Tandem. So glad to have you, as always, along for the ride. If you are joining for the first time, awesome. Welcome here to the community. This podcast is all about encouraging entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, or people who are maybe thinking about getting started with a business but just aren't sure yet, and helping you to navigate all that brings. So we talk to experts here, business owners, and sometimes I throw in the occasional solo podcast as well. Today's episode is with Jayme Busch, and she is the owner of Unique Boutique. And this is an awesome episode today in that we talk about what it looks like to open a brick and mortar boutique in a very small town in Iowa. And there are so many myth-busting things in this episode that I know you're going to find so very helpful. And one of the things that's really fun about this conversation too with Jayme is that this was not an overnight wonder. She didn't go wake up one morning and go, I'm going to open a boutique and then just open an incredible boutique in a brick and mortar space. Though she does have an incredible brick and mortar space now, it actually started maybe not in a way you would expect. And so I'm excited for you to hear more of Jayme's story and her inspiration. She does share some amazing tips if you're thinking about opening a retail space, a boutique, or maybe you have a business in a small town. But she also just has some really great insight and advice about staying true to yourself and authentic and running a business in a way that suits you and the life that you want to live. So excited for you to meet Jayme. Let's stop talking here and just jump into this episode. All right, well, welcome everyone. Today I have a really fun guest, Jayme Busch, and I was kind of excited about this because I actually got to go to Jayme's business, which I don't always get to do before we have an interview. And Jayme, you had invited me out to come check out your boutique, and I thought it was just awesome what you've been doing in Neola, outside of, if people are familiar with the area, it's kind of outside of Underwood area, Neola, Iowa. And you have an incredible boutique out there. And this is going to be a fun conversation because you mentioned this when we chatted and as in your notes here, but you went from a business polishing rocks as a kid to a really chic and fun boutique as well. So I feel like we should start there, but introduce yourself, say hello to everyone, and just tell us a little bit about your boutique and how you went from polishing rocks, of course.
Hi, guys. My name is Jayme Busch. I'm originally from Omaha, and I live in Neola now. I'm super excited to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
But yes, polishing rocks. My mom would tell you that when I was little, I've always sold something. And when we were maybe 7 or 8 years old, the neighbor girl and I would literally polish rocks with and then go sell them to the neighbors. But the kicker part is that we lived on a busy street. So I grew up in Omaha off of Harrison, 30th and Harrison, and it is a very busy one-way, each-way street. And so we would go to the same neighbors every day. But we would come back with money, $10, $15, when we would do it. So, and that flourished into getting a rock tumbler for Christmas one year. And then we would sell the really polished rocks.
Yeah.
So my mom just kind of always said I've had the knack of selling. So yeah, that's where
I love it. And you've transitioned. This, I think, is really an interesting story. All the stories are interesting. This is an interesting story, right? Of having an entrepreneurial spirit from a young age, which I was the same. I was selling things to my sisters and my parents owned businesses. They got us involved. We always had a little something that we were doing. But you also have transitioned through many things over the years. Obviously, that selling rocks was when you were a kid.
Yeah.
But from an online shop to doing craft shows, doing vendor events, and then eventually you've moved into a boutique. And you had a boutique trailer, is that right, for a while? So talk us through kind of the iterations of your business and what it is.
Sure. So it started I moved out. So I moved out to Neola when I married my husband, and I stayed home with kiddos. and that was a little bit rough, to not have any adult time at all.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband is a truck driver. He's home every night, but he doesn't have a dead set time that he's home. And so I was, moved out, didn't know anybody. And I kind of always sold things anyways. So I started with like bows, little girls' bows and headbands, and did a lot of craft shows. My husband, we kind of did that when I was dating too. I got more out into the rural communities in Iowa that I never even knew existed because I was on the Nebraska side. So,
Right.
And that just kind of flourished into, then I started making kids clothes like applique and sewed things. And then further into the years, I switched over to clothes, just adult clothes with LuLaRoe, and
Yeah.
that was short lived. If you have seen the things of LuLaRoe, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
And then I stopped that. And that's actually kind of another conversation if you want to have, we could do too. But I left us with a little bit of debt that I was not happy with, because we were a single working household. So I said I would never do that again. But I started selling Color Street. You're going to say something, sorry.
I would say, because with Lulu, you have to buy your inventory, correct?
Yes, you have
Yes.
to buy. You started out. The minimum package was $5,000, and you had to continuously buy, and you didn't know what you were getting. So now, when I buy, if I buy a run of this jacket, I'm getting this jacket. With LuLaRoe, it was you bought the style that it was a jacket, but you didn't know what print it would be.
Right.
And that was kind of the unraveling and unrolling of online, like Facebook Live sales. Like that's what really took off Facebook Live, for anybody selling anything. And so I did that for about a year and a half. And then it just got to the point where you're just constantly buying, but you may not be selling. So I got out of that. I was a little sad. First thing I could ever say, like I really failed at, if you want to call it failing. And then I had a little bit of money. I don't even know where I got it. Something might have been a birthday or something from my dad.
Sure.
And I bought into Color Street, like one of the first, couple hundred people that started, which if you don't know what Color Street is, it's nail strips,
Yeah.
like nail polish strips. And I saved up money from that for like a year and went full-fledged into buying like inventory with another girl in Connecticut who I've never met still to this day.
Wow.
We talk, we both started a boutique online. And she too sold LuLaRoe years, before.
Right.
And so we would split packs. So when you usually purchase a pack. It might be like 2 smalls, 2 mediums, 2 larges, 2 extra larges, something like that. And so we just used like a Google Doc or Google Sheets with what we had, and we would ship back and forth to each other or to our customers. And that's kind of what started like the actual boutique. So I did it out of my home, or little 1,000 square foot home, old farmhouse. I would do open houses in my driveway and my living room, which I look back at that now and I love my husband for not hating me. He did it with silently.
Yeah.
And then I was going to get my first storefront in Neola, and it was kind of right at the brink of COVID. And it just ended up not working. And I was super bummed. And it only didn't work because the person sold the building. But it was like, there's not a lot, sorry about that. There's not a lot of property or anything in Neola. It's kind of all old property.
And to clarify, for those who don't know the area where we are, Neola is a small rural Iowa town.
Right, 900. Yeah. There's about 900 people in Neola.
Right.
So,
and this is one of the things I love about your story. So as we're talking, like we could weave this in, but I think so often people will think I can't start a business for, and there's these constraints, and I live in a small town is one of them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I guess I never thought about it that way at the time. And it's very true though. My biggest thing was that I'm not from here.
Mm.
Am I going to get that support? Because I'm not married into this big family, that a lot of people know, or a big
Mm-hmm.
farm family, or an old family, and so that was always kind of been my biggest like fear.
Mm-hmm.
I came into Iowa with in rural. I live rural too, so I don't even live in Neola. I just live right outside of Neola, so people didn't see me really every day, or didn't necessarily know my husband. My husband grew up in Underwood, um, was homeschooled until high school, and then went to high school. But they're a rodeo family, so they rodeoed a lot. They were,
Mm-hmm.
that was their forte of things. So just not knowing anybody, and then coming in this business, which shockingly, the older population, they'd probably kill me for saying that, but 60s, like, late 50s, 60s, it was those women that really took me in
Mm-hmm.
and like purchased a ton from me, and still to this day support me. And everybody supports. I don't mean to just call out, one general, but that's what really started it for me, and their friends and their friends and their friends and their friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we I was bummed. So then I posted it, and it was a like, this is what we were doing, and I'm sad, but it's going to be bigger and better things. It was for a reason, all of that. And then I found this. I need to like send you the pictures of what it looked like when we got it.
Yes, because I've been in your space and it's beautiful.
Yes.
And you were trying to describe to me, and I could totally relate. My ex-husband and I had a space redone, and it was a wreck, like holes in the floor that a car could go through, walls peeling off everywhere, ceiling falling in. But yeah, tell us, what was Unique Boutique like before?
Well, so we bought the trailer. So the trailer was a 1988 old new trend work trailer
Okay.
that I seen it on Facebook Marketplace, and told my husband, like, I want this.
And this is in lieu of the building because the building had fallen through, so you
before.
decided a trailer. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So building fell through in Neola, like brink of COVID, like COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was almost gonna throw in the towel because I thought like nobody's gonna, like, we can't go anywhere, we can't this, but really in reality, sales amped up because everybody was home, and shopping.
Mm-hmm. Online, which you were an expert at.
Yes. And so we went out to Wahoo and we bought this trailer. It didn't had a back window broke out of it, old tires, um, a piece of the siding on our way home was flapping off of it.
Yes.
My husband and his duct tape, duct tape fixes everything in a cowboy's world. So, or a farmer's world.
Yes.
So we like stopped on the side of the road, um, duct taped it up, got it home, and I went right in the next weekend or the next week to literally demoing the inside, pulled the ceiling out of it, to put new insulation and watertight everything, and so we worked on that for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and then my debut of Ethel, we call her Ethel,
That's cute.
was Small Business Saturday on Main Street, Neola, in front of the tire shop.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. And it wasn't a super, super cold day. I was able to put tables and stuff outside. And that was kind of like really, to me, the start of Unique Boutique. Yes, I had it online and I did a ton, but that was kind of like, I want more,
Mm-hmm.
than just my home.
What was it about that? Why move from the online space? Because it sounds like that was successful for you.
Mm-hmm.
to
So
wanting to have a space, especially during COVID, right? Where everyone's not doing like out shopping. Talk me through your thinking there.
So if you know me, and even just a little bit from you meeting me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a social butterfly. So me being home with two babies and my oldest was very rough.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanting to see people and get out to see people um, was really what I wanted. And then brainstorming with my husband is one of the best out of the box thinkers I've ever met in my life, where I'm sometimes so compartmentalized in my things
Mm-hmm.
that he's like, what about this? Or what about that? Or think about it this way. Um, and he was saying, Jayme, you have Neola, right? And you have some of the surrounding, but what can we do so like you can continue to grow?
Mm-hmm.
And you think about it, but until somebody says it and breaks it down a little more, then you're like, oh, yeah, like what can I do? I was doing addicted boxes, or I've had all different names for them, bargain
Mm-hmm.
boxes. Um, and it would be like $35 for 6 pieces, between accessories and whatever. And they were big. And he's like, you need to start dropping those off at businesses, or places that people can grab from them, and your card's in there and they know and they find you and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so that was when we did the trailer. It was so we didn't have anything else that we could, like, I would just throw stuff in my car. And big IKEA bags, the big blue IKEA bags.
Yes.
And so it was more of like, I needed a place to get it out of my house. I wanted to get out of my house, and we wanted to be able to take it to these other little communities that weren't getting out either. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what we did. We went to Minden, we went to Shelby, well, kind of Shelby, like where Karsten Farm Days is, so right outside of Shelby. Um, we had been to Underwood. Kind of, we keep Ethel close because she's one
Yeah.
axle, and I am afraid to drive her um, because she's one axle. She's 8.5 feet wide, which is actually bigger than your standard, usually 8 feet, by 16 feet. So my husband's a professional truck driver, and I leave it to him.
That's right.
So yeah, and then she's super bougie. Like the inside is all redone and everything, but the outside is a little rough.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like sometimes that just resonates me.
Yeah. I love it. So you still have Ethel.
I still have Ethel. She's parked in my driveway at home.
Okay.
She comes out about once a year. Uh, this year we have her kind of full of a lot of things, not just inventory. So she
Mm-hmm.
hasn't really moved this year. But I don't know if we might not get her out this year. If we don't, this will be the first year. I told my husband that I think maybe Small Business Saturday, we probably need to bring her down and park her
Mm-hmm.
at the shop, just
She's
because.
part of the story.
Yeah, everybody's always asking. So,
Yeah.
or my husband said something about maybe doing a trick or trunk or something, and the kids can go and we can do something funny with that or fun with that. So
That would be fun.
after that, I went to Underwood. So that was
Mm-hmm.
my first storefront. So I was looking. I had kind of grown out of the trailer and it was backing back up into the house. And so I needed something. And I reached out to a few people. And Kelly Irwin, they own Dave Lyons Towing. She was like, you should reach out to this person. And again, I don't know at this point. I still don't know a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a bar that's under construction right now. They're redoing a lot, but in Underwood, right off the interstate, I-80 Lounge. And in that parking lot is this little building with a yellow roof. It's a burgundy building. It has a garage attached to it. From what I was told, it was a can place and a gas station at some point in time. And so I reached out. I met this woman, Morgan, and her and I are very much alike. And I wanted to rent it. And she said, okay. and it was very reasonable. And we just kind of went in this place and did what we could to it. It's old, super old. Um, and then Small Business Saturday of that year, we had our grand opening. The interesting part of that is at that point, we're like 2 years into COVID. I had not had COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And the week that I signed the doc, or right around there, I got COVID.
Oh gosh.
So, and my husband had just had it like the month prior. So he happened to be off work that week just because it was his birthday, and he always
Mm-hmm.
takes a couple weeks off. And so our time spent was him being off work, redoing this place, and me having COVID,
You
doing
being
as much
sick.
as I could. But it wasn't like I lost my taste and smell, and I was kind of a little achy, and that was all. So I was really lucky on that. But the tiredness, I was so tired. So I didn't know if I was going to be able to be like cleared to even open when I wanted to. I
Mm-hmm.
was, and that was good. Um, the very first person that came in when I opened, I have to say this because I love this woman. I was still in like my pajamas
Okay.
because I had pushed back the opening, and she drove from Griswold, Iowa, which is about an hour and a half.
Oh wow.
And it was my husband's aunt, Margaret. And I was just like, hi. And then I started crying. And she was like, it's okay, and we were putting racks up on the walls. My neighbor had stopped by, Hannah, and was like, do you need help? And we didn't have racks on the walls. Everything we did
Mm-hmm.
was industrial pipe. So we
Mm-hmm.
were like putting these things together to put them on the walls, and we made it work. It worked out, and so that was our grand opening. And after that, I was there about 2.5 years. I was again like growing.
Mm-hmm.
We bought another trailer, just an enclosed trailer, to be able to kind of take stuff back and forth and do the things we needed to. And then the Pollies had reached out, and they own the building that I'm in now, which coincidentally was the building that I was going to be in originally.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting? I remember you saying that,
Mm-hmm.
like the full circle piece of how, and I feel like there's been a lot of full circles, like the Small Business Saturdays and that. So before you go into this new place that you're in,
Yes.
question for you. I'm just like tracking along with your journey here, right? Of looking to do something outside of, the kiddos being at home, being a social butterfly, things like that. Obviously having this entrepreneurial spirit. And so you got started in things like LuLaRoe or Color Street where you had to buy inventory, and it has a retailness to it, but also like you're part of a very specific network when you do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious though, because I think a lot of people talk about that. Maybe they get involved in something like that or something like an MLM, etc. There's, different ways where you can buy into or get involved with a business of a type of business, right? And so often I hear people say, and they'll kind of like, oh gosh, yeah, I got into that or that. I do think there's a lot of value there, whether you like those MLMs, whether or not you feel like you got burned by them or they were great. I do think that there can be a lot of value in learning by
Mm-hmm.
taking a step.
Yep.
And I'm just curious for you because you've gone through that journey, and I know there are people listening right now who are involved in those, and there is I think there's value,
Mm-hmm.
even though some people don't love them, right? I do think there can be value there.
Sure.
What, as you reflect back on those early days, what do you think were the valuable pieces along the way? If you were talking to somebody who's also maybe kind of at the trailer stage of the entrepreneurial journey and they've gone through these things too, like what did you learn along the way up to this point?
Sure. So I also want to add that, like, when Unique Boutique started, it was MLMs, it was makeup, it was Tupperware, it was
Mm-hmm.
Color Street, it was, the new things up and coming that you like this is going to be the next best thing, and you join.
Yeah.
I have nothing to knock MLMs whatsoever, because that's where I got like a lot. I mean, yes, I was doing that when I was really young, selling rocks. But when I turned
Yes.
18, the very first MLM I ever signed with was Mary Kay. And I sold Mary Kay for like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing was that I said that, and I'm not knocking anyone, but I said that I will never be that person and you guys are going to know if you've had this happen to you,
Yeah.
that walks into Walmart and goes, "Oh my gosh, your eyes are so gorgeous. Have you ever thought about wearing Mary Kay?"
Right.
Tell you times that that's actually happened to me. Like,
Okay.
multiple. Or working in a drive-through at Scooters in Bellevue, the same thing. Your eyes, and then like that you see the same person every day,
Mm-hmm.
and then they come in and they're like, "You should sell this. Have you ever
Mm-hmm.
thought about this? Will you come to my party?" Like, I'm not knocking anybody for that. I think one of my biggest things that I can take out of any of the MLMs is that the majority of the coaching is that a no is just a no at that moment. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a no. It may not be a no the next week or next month or next year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, I was part of Visalis, Body by Vi or Body by V, in a mega part in Omaha of some of the founders and stuff. And I learned more from that than I did probably anything. In some of the roundabout ways of like, you can start a LLC and have another one to build your network over here and your tree over here, and I
Mm-hmm.
was a little older at that point, so I understood it more. I was 24 at the time. But really just the drive. If you are in any company, I don't care if it's an MLM or whatever, like if you don't have the drive for it, then you're probably not going to succeed. And that doesn't mean, like, there are days that I don't have the drive for anything and I just take a break, right?
Totally.
I just got back from Florida. I took a 2-day break with my neighbor just to get away. And it was just a refresher because I was finding myself in the like, ugh, I just don't want to do this. And I don't want to be that. And I've always said, like, if it feels like a job, then I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like a job. Not yet. So if it gets that way or I feel that way, then I just need to take a little bit of a break. So, but the drive, I think you and your mission, like have a mission, have a goal, have small goals for big goals. I've kind of recently really come back into that. Like, what are my goals? Where are, my personal development with the boutique as well, which is like, this is great with, Tandem Works and being able to do this. And we were talking earlier for Rural Summit and things like that. So it's not just what's everybody seeing, but the behind the scenes too.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little off of your question, but
No, this is good. That's how conversations go here. We're
yeah,
all good. Yeah.
but really just having the drive and your goals and your mission and the people that support you. And, my husband is obviously my rock, and I'm sure there are days that he is like, what is this woman doing today? She's gonna kill me. But he is the person that brings me back to earth. I don't get too far up there in the clouds, but when I do, he also isn't ever like, no.
Mm-hmm.
He might say, he's my out of the box thinker, so he might say like, well, what about this?
Mm-hmm.
And I've found a lot of people like that in my life recently, that
Yeah.
are like, it's a great idea and I don't want to knock you down, but let's bring you down a little bit and then get there.
That community piece, I know you've talked about a little bit already, of being in a community where you didn't necessarily know a lot of people.
Mm-hmm,
But on the flip side, it sounds like you've built a community,
mm-hmm,
which again, I think can come from early years of your experiences within those types of industries, like Color Street, etc. They really do help teach you to lean into your community, to lean into a team, to reach out to mentors, to get training.
yep,
And I think sometimes when you're not from that world, you're like, gosh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Like, absolutely, I could reach out to my team. When you're not under something like that and you're having to create your own,
Right.
How do you go about doing that? How are you creating that community for yourself?
So, my community was distant at the beginning. Like I said, when I started the boutique, I was doing this with my friend Katie that we randomly met um, through Color Street. And so I was really leaning in with her. Um, Now, on the community side of things, I love other business owners, and I love to do events with other business owners if they're willing, and or just support them too.
Mm-hmm.
Try. We are very busy with my children and their sports and things, but I try to get to grand openings, and I try, to support local everywhere. Really, um, I've done that. Even when my husband would rodeo, we always went to a coffee shop. No matter where we went, we would find a little hole in the wall coffee shop. But really, just, I don't know, it's a hard question. Really, just like you said, it's leaning in on your community, on your people, finding your people. Uh, Sometimes you think you find your people and you didn't. I've run into that, and that's okay. But you always still have to put your business first, and your sanity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, there's a being close, and there's a being too close, or there's just a having your boundaries and your lines drawn.
Yeah.
Um, it took a long time. Like, I would honestly tell you that even though I had all these people supporting and stuff, like, I just now in the last probably year feel more in tuned with my customers, even my friends, people that come into the shop. Um, I don't know if it's because I've moved to a little bit bigger space and all of those things, or if it's like myself that I've just grown myself. I think I've grown a lot in just a lot of aspects. I'm in getting into my late 30s, so
Yeah. Well, I know you had mentioned like one of your key lessons to share with people is that idea of slow and steady wins the race,
yeah.
right? That so often the myths, right? There's so many myths of business ownership of, oh my gosh, this was like an overnight success, or
Mhm.
wow, I want to be her. I want to be that business owner who clearly Jayme just got this building and opened a boutique. And I love that. It's beautiful. No, like there was a long story that has led up to this. It wasn't an overnight, right?
Right. Something that my husband and I have always talked about. My husband is not on Facebook. Like, he has a Facebook that he hasn't logged into for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when I'm like, hey, like, look, he just doesn't even know.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we've talked about is like how many people are on my Facebook VIP group. And I belong to a ton of like boutique groups or whatnot, that have like 30,000, 50,000. Like, um, I don't even know. Now I need to look. I have always, you always see the like add 3 people and tag 3 people. And as great as that is, because it gets you marketing, it gets you different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want, I wanted to organically grow that page. I want people that want to be on there, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I have 2,300 people. So I've had this business for like almost 8 years now, and I still only have 2,300 people, and I love every single one of them. But that's been my biggest thing. Like you said, slow and steady wins the race.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I would love to just go to market and spend $30,000 on inventory, I told my husband and myself that once this LuLaRoe thing happened, I would not be in debt. It was like $3,000. Like, let me just
Mm-hmm.
be clear. I know that there are some people that were hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt with this company, or their credit card company. It was a couple grand, but for us as a new family, my husband being the sole person working, like, it hurt my heart in every way, shape, and form
Mm-hmm.
that my husband was having to work extra because of something I failed at. Um, so I have just been very, very cautious and careful about what I purchase. I'm very intentional with what I purchase. Now, are there things that I purchase that I think are going to be great and not one thing sells? Yes. And boy, does that suck, because then you know you were off.
Yeah.
Like maybe you liked that for some reason, but nobody else did.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because you're in your story, you're transitioning into this building, and talk us through too, especially again, just thinking about the people out there who are wanting to make a transition like this as well. They're like, okay, I'm ready to move to something that is maybe more my own.
Right.
How do you make that leap? What have you learned about the retail business? You say going to market. I know some people are like, what is she talking about? What does going to market even mean? Like, how did you make that leap into curating your own inventory? What are some of your tips with that?
So I joined a massive group of women and men, mostly women, but men are in there too, called the Boutique Hub. And it is literally that. It is a hub for wholesalers, retailers, and everything in between. I can't speak enough on them, but it's a subscription. I pay so much a month. We're part of all their Facebook groups, and they have a huge website with tons of training. Like anything that you want to learn about, they have it there somewhere, or they have somebody to connect you to. So I started with that, which can be very overwhelming because you have like they have step-by-step guides of all the things that you can do. And I felt like I felt kind of like I don't need all of that. Like I've been doing this and I'm going to do this. But I learned later that like even just seeking out like, oh, this is what somebody did. Or I have a couple of very big boutique friends that I reach out to sometimes. And I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Or can you tell me how you did this? One thing I can tell you is what you don't do, because you don't know what you're going to get, is go to somebody and say, can you tell me where you get all of your inventory? Or can you tell me, like, because 90% of the time, we have organically grown those relationships with those people that we're purchasing inventory from, whether we met them at market or somewhere else. It's one of those, like, you have to put the grunt work in. And maybe not everybody agrees with me on that, but I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, like, can you tell me where you get your inventory? And I'm like, well, I go to market. And I just kind of leave it at that, you know. Now, if there's a new boutique owner or new somebody, like there are multiple people in our area that will tell you that I have shared sellers with them. I have offered for them to come to market with me. It's just one of those things where, like, I'm not going to give you my whole portfolio because that's pretty much my entire business plan, right? But so back onto market. So market is where we purchase our inventory. It's not the only place that you can, but it's one of the biggest ones. There are markets in Dallas, Atlanta, Vegas, New York, Nashville. I know Miami's has some different ones. They're all over. You just have to find which ones kind of fit your market, right? The very first time I went to market was in January of maybe 2020. Might have been 21. I honestly can't remember.
And was that to stock your trailer then? This was before the space.
Yep, that was before, kind of in the middle of both.
Okay.
It was still during COVID. Still had to wear masks on a plane. Had to wear masks in this massive market center. And I went by myself, and it was the first time that I had traveled without my children or my family or anybody for that matter. So it was crazy. It was overwhelming, but it was great. And that's where I started really building the relationships with, some of my big wholesalers. Now I go at least 2 times a year, sometimes 3 or 4. It just depends. So I just went to market in Dallas in August. And you get to see the new people coming in. You get to see the people that have been in the business. And you get to meet some really cool freaking people. That's like kind of my other community, right? I have a jeans person that I work with that I could call them today and say, I need X, Y, and Z, and I can only get 5 of them. I can't get, a mass amount because I live in a town of 900 people. And he 100% understands and gets that and will ship that stuff out to me. And it is not like that everywhere. So building those relationships with those people is huge too, right? And then relying on them to tell us what the fashion is going to be. Sometimes that's my hardest part. Like right now, wide leg jeans are back. I feel like I'm in middle school in elephant pants again.
I am totally a wide leg jean person.
Yes.
When it all went skinny jeans, I was like, oh man,
yeah,
it just doesn't fit my body.
it's hard. Yeah, and everybody's different, but I'm like, oh, I just don't think I can get on that. And first it was like the flare jeans when the flare jeans came back, right? And like, let's be honest though, what we had as boot cut like 25 years ago is not what boot cut is now. Like
that's true.
Jean now. And so even just like getting people to come in and something will say super high rise. I'm like, why do you guys put that on there? Don't put that on there. I put them on and they're like at my belly button. They're not super high rise because they'd be up to here on, And so like that can sometimes that's a challenge where somebody just sees that it says it's super high rise. I'm not going to put that on. And I'm like, please just put it on. Just try it on for me. Like I'll give you 20% off if you try it on. I promise you, you're going to like it. And honestly, like 90% of the time they're like, wow, I'm like, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't read the label, but relying on those people too is, or like I said, I'm on all different groups with the Boutique Hub and like, we're in the Midwest. So let's be honest. If people don't know, like we're about 2 years behind on everything.
For sure.
What's hitting. So when this was a good one, my husband reminded me of this a couple years ago. The flannels, the bleached flannels were a really big thing. And I bought really heavy, probably one of my first like couple $1,000 orders I ever had. I bought really heavy into them because they were moving and so they were cheaper. And I was like, yes, let me do this because I just didn't think anybody would spend $60 on a bleached flannel. So like 35, 40 was a little bit better. I bought them and I sold like 3 of them that fall. And I was really sad. I was like, man, I overshot on this. And so I was going to put them on a D-stash page, which is like a page for, it's like a buy, sell, and swap for boutique owners. And my husband was like, I think you should just put them away for next year. And I'm like, they say don't do that. You're never supposed to do that. He's like, you can't forget. We're like a year or 2 behind from, the West Coast or the East Coast or whatever. And I did. I saved them. And the next year I put them out and I sold every single one of them in one event.
Wow.
In Minden. It was a Minden event and I sold every single one of them. There was none left. So, sometimes you have to realize that too. And I don't like to hold on to stuff because we're not supposed to, but sometimes I will. And then it's also like, I don't want to have failed on that. Like, dang it, did I waste that money? So, but yeah, it's kind of relying on a lot of different people. You're relying on whoever the people of the fashion world are. And then you have to bring it back to home because we live in Podunk, Iowa, and certain things are just, the big, long, tall, sparkly cowboy boots are probably not going to sell in Neola, Iowa.
Right.
So sometimes I have to reel myself in on that. I'm like, I would love to wear that, but nobody else would wear that,
Yes.
And then also like how much I purchase.
How do you make decisions like that? Are you just always evaluating your cash flow? Do you know certain times of year?
Yeah, that's another part with the whole market piece. So when you're going to market, you're purchasing like for 6 months in advance. So when I go to market here, if I go in October, I'm buying for spring of next year. Maybe some winter, and that's really hard too because we live in the Midwest. So I'll go to market and purchase October. And in January, they want to ship me shorts. in January in Iowa, y'all.
And you're holding, so then you'd be like holding this stock,
Yes.
obviously.
And that's tough too because I have no storage, right? And so plus that's cash flow that just got pulled out, like ripped out of everything, so um I've got a lot of good relationships that I can tell them like I cannot have that till like a minimum of March. And a lot of them are okay with that. Or I just don't purchase from them, which really stinks. But, or if I have the space and can do things, then I will. But that's the hardest part, I think, about a boutique in the Midwest is that, like, even right now, I still have shorts on my racks. If you go to if you go to Walmart or Target, most big retail places, you're gonna see all their fall and winter stuff.
Yeah, like Christmas, the Christmas aisles are out.
Yes.
If you need a swimsuit, if you're traveling right now and you forgot your swimsuit, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to find one at the local store.
Don't match or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a 2-piece suit that you're like, well, we'll just hope that I stay half under the water most of the time. I mean, I've definitely been there, right? Where you're like, seasonally, I still need things and they're not in the shop. Yeah. Which is nice, though, too, about a local boutique is that if I do still want a pair of shorts because it's hot, I can come in there.
Right.
But yes, what a juggle, right? To figure those things out.
So that's one of those things that ideally I should have pulled this stuff off of my racks already. But we have October days that it's 90 degrees,
mm-hmm.
And so that's been my biggest challenge is like not holding on to something too long or putting it out too late. That's been one of my biggest struggles. And I still struggle with that.
Talk to me too about, so you're figuring out inventory, cash flow, all these things. And I'm also in the back of my head going, and also, so you're a business owner, you coach for your kids, if I recall, right?
Yep.
Your wife, you're a mother, and you work a full-time job that's not the boutique. We haven't even touched on that, right? I don't think we even mentioned that. Like, hey, pause button here for a minute. You're doing that on top of all this. So how are you juggling that? And what does a typical day look like? And I just think it's very inspiring because there are so many people out there who are thinking, I want to start something. I want it to be brick and mortar, but I'm juggling all these other things. And I look at you and I go, you are doing that. Mm-hmm. And I know everyone out there is going, how?
Yeah.
And does it look smooth and beautiful every day? You know?
Yeah, definitely. So I have 3 little girls. My oldest is 12, my middle is 8, and my youngest is 6. We have, I should have went a little more into my introduction, huh? We live on a small acreage. My husband's in the pro rodeo. We have 6 horses right now. We had 4, we just got 2 more. So
fun.
We have a Hereford cow, little mini cow that I wanted. I don't know why I wanted her, but I did. She's so ugly. She's cute. We have a bucket bottle calf that my daughter, my oldest, did for a fair. And then, yes, I work full time. I am a coach. I coach select softball, assistant coach for my oldest daughter in an organization that's actually in Bellevue, Nebraska, which is where I grew up. And she actually plays for the organization that I played for growing up. It just has a different name. So that's
too fun.
So we have that. And then I do work full time. So mm-hmm. I work for AIM Institute. We are a nonprofit. We have some for-profit and nonprofit, but in a nutshell, my side is on the nonprofit, and I serve kiddos with barriers or underprivileged, not all, but with Talent Search and Trio. If you've not ever heard of it, look it up. They're Department of Education grants that help kids basically alleviate any barriers that they could potentially have if they wanted to keep going out of, in college or whatnot. So
very cool.
So I do that too. So I'm in the schools. I was a teacher prior at a middle school in Council Bluffs for a few years. One of my biggest things is to it keeps me humble. It's opened my eyes to things that I never would have thought about for teachers and students and kiddos. Um, so yeah, and there's, I'm sure there's a few other things in there. Yes, I'm
Yes.
a wife. My husband's in the pro rodeo, so he doesn't travel as much as he used to, but he still does rodeo. So when he decides he wants to hop on the circuit, we're kind of go there. Um, and then like my typical day. So my husband is a Teamster. He works for ABF Freight. He recently was selected to be on the ABF road team, which is a big accomplishment for safety and like several things. So he has traveled more in a plane than he ever has in his whole life this last year and a half. He just left this morning, actually. Um, but his union job is every 6 months can get a new bid, a new time to work. And so in July and January are those months. And in July, he took a 3 a.m. bid.
Oh boy.
So he leaves about 2:15 every morning, and I get up, usually hear him leave. So then I get up and get the kiddos ready and get them off to school. We live in rural Iowa, so the bus picks them up in front of our house, which I'm so thankful for. Get them to school, and then usually get on meetings that I need to get on, answer emails. Every once in a while, I might be able to make an appointment for people to come shop. People will come and shop every once in a while during the day if they can't make it on the weekends.
That was something I was wondering about as a boutique, not to interrupt you there, but
no, you're okay.
Hours, right? Like you are not open every day, certain days. So we definitely need to talk about that more. Continue with your morning, because I'm so curious. But I think that's another thing, right? People go, gosh, if I'm going to open a retail space, I have to quit my job and then sit in that retail space every day.
All day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll circle back to that.
Yeah. Pretty much it depends on my day. Some days I'm at a middle school or a high school. I also do outreach. So I do a lot of community outreach. So I might be at a ribbon cutting or, Iowa, the Council Bluffs, the Pot County Foundation. They just had their their mural.
Mm-hmm. The Community Foundation, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, the Community Foundation just had their mural, and the patio just had their mini bowling. So I do try to get to those things too, because I do adult outreach also for my job. So, which is really nice. It ties into, I kind of have like two faces to my name. I have, well, more than that because I'm a mom, but I have kind of my work community side of stuff, and then I have the boutique community side of stuff. So my job works really well in that sense of things, that I can kind of do some of the things together. And then I get home by 4 for the kiddos to get off the bus. If Joe isn't off, sometimes he's off. And if he is, I might run to the grocery store. And then it just depends. My daughter's in middle school. So middle school sports, she's playing volleyball. Middle school sports games are at like 4:00. So we grab the kids and go do that. And then she might have softball practice or, and then all your mom stuff, dishes and laundry and
yes,
cooking food. My oldest daughter has several significant food allergies. So we can't really just go out to eat. So we have to cook a lot. And which also brings in, I can't forget my mom. My mom moved out to Neola last summer, not this summer, but the last summer. And she's a ton of help as well. Like, sometimes she'll drive by the shop and be like, someone's at your shop, nobody should be at my shop. So, but yeah, like, and I can't say that it's all pretty, because it's not. There's moments that, well, this week my husband's gone, And it's hard when he's gone. So my husband, like I do in the house, and my husband does out of the house, with the animals and stuff. So this week, we'll be doing all the chores and checking
Mm-hmm.
things, and which is fine. It's just it's not always super pretty, and we have our moments.
So how do you flex that around the boutique? Right? Do you choose to be open just select days? Is it appointment only? And
Yeah.
are you still selling online is a question too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are like, okay, so what happened to this online thing?
Yep. So I've still been online. I've never taken anything offline. I have that VIP Facebook page that I post on almost every day. There was a couple months ago that I was just so busy with Addie softball and traveling that I had some friends messaging like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And they're like, "You haven't been posting at 7 o'clock every morning." And I was like,
Right? They're
"No."
watching.
Yeah. And so I had kind of posted a post saying like, "Hey, I'm good. I promise I'm good."
Yeah.
We're just going crazy right now. Um, so
Which to your point, you were saying about, having not the most giant following, but they're bought in,
yeah.
right? And that's so important to
Mhm.
note too.
And they know, like, a lot of people even in the community will be like, "I haven't seen you in forever." Or they might have seen me getting gas, and I'm like, on my way to Mankato, Minnesota for softball. Like, so like then they know too, like, oh, well, she just hasn't, been here. Um, and I do have a couple employees. Last year when I opened, I was like, okay, I can't do this by myself anymore. And it's really, really hard to like trust somebody enough to just turn everything that you've worked for over, even if it's only for a couple hours, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so like we decided if my husband had his way, he would tell me to just do the boutique. Um, but I've always said like I don't want it to be a job. So I don't know that it would turn into that, but I don't want to see it happen right now, right?
Sure.
And in our economy that we're in right now, and I'm not going to get political, I'm just saying in our economy that we're in right now, that is not what I want to do. I hope that it grows into something big that my kids can take over if they choose to, and that they love to do it as well. But that's if they choose to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I just hope I can keep going, right? Like my biggest thing is that I'm not losing and I can keep going, Clearly, I'm not driving, a $300,000 vehicle or, like we live in an old farmhouse, like we're just doing what we love right now. So, hours wise, right now, my hours normally are Saturdays from 10 to 2 and Sundays from 11 to 3, and then appointments, as people need them. When times get busier, so right before school started, I opened up a couple evenings, before school started and had a couple sales for moms and daughters to come in and things like that. Um, Holiday times, I'm open as much as I possibly can be during the holidays. I try to hold little events, to draw people in and maybe bring friends and things like that. But we've always said that if we have to if we have to miss something because of the boutique, then like there's a problem. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? I don't want to miss my kids' things. I don't want to, so those are my priorities. And the people that know me or see my persona online know that my kids come first, my family comes first. So I've built my business on weekends. When I was in Underwood, I was only open on the weekends. When we had the trailer, well, we still have the trailer. When we brought the trailer out, it was only ever on weekends. Um, and then, since I've had this space for the last year, for the most part, it's only been on weekends. Um,
And I love how you can be creative and out of the box, right? Like as I think about this, I'm like, you have built a community who understands, in a sense, your lifestyle and your mission and your vision. And so they have flexed to that as well. And I think it can be easy as a business owner to think, I have to accommodate every possible client scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be value to that. I do know, and I think sometimes in certain retail spaces or depending on the design of your business, holding regular hours is very important because people show up, and if you're not there, then they're like, oh gosh, I'm not coming again.
Right.
But on the flip side, I love this perspective of, but if you're building a very specific community, because that's really what you've built, like
Mm-hmm.
you've built a community who love the things that you bring in, who they trust what you curate. They know that you are like an expert, if you will, when it comes to a fashion piece or an accessory piece or a lovely gift for somebody. And so, because of that, you have such a strong relationship with them
Mm-hmm.
that they trust you and you can trust them. Like, I'm not going to be open this time, but I will be open over here and I'll accommodate when I can. And I just love that flavor of a business. It's a different flavor of a business for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping as people are listening, they're taking note because it's so easy to get stuck in it has to look like this
Mm-hmm.
or it won't succeed. And you really are doing things in a different way.
Yeah, and that was a big challenge for me. So somebody who's part of the boutique hub, her husband rodeoed with my husband, and we once I seen that she was at market one day, we started talking, and she was like, "Oh, like Joe Bush," and I looked at her last name, and I was like, "Oh, Jacob Burks," like, and it clicked with us, and so I really really reach out to her when things are crazy, or when I need some guidance and support. And one of the biggest things that had kind of been said was like, you have to have consistent hours. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I felt like that consistent hours was like Monday through Sunday or Tuesday through Sunday or whatever that was, but it was more or less just consistency. And so one of the biggest things that people have asked, or have still this day always ask, like, how's the shop going? What do you do? Sometimes it's older people in Neola, just different people I've run across. And my response is always like, it's great when I'm open.
Mm-hmm.
Now my supplement is online. I post throughout the week. um, I try to post, I try to be consistent with that. I need to get better. I've been playing around with different social media, Predis AI and
Yes.
Hootsuite and all the different things to kind of figure out what works for me, and so I can do that a little bit better. Right now, my posting consists of I can't sleep at night, so
Yes.
I'm gonna schedule out my posts for the next however many days until I'm too tired and I can finally go to sleep. Um,
Which is very common. I think we talked a little bit about this. It's part of why we started teaching our social engagement method class is because there's so many times where you just open your phone, you kind of stare at the screen and you go, so what am I posting now? Which is not to knock it. I mean, sometimes that's how your business is running, right?
yeah,
But I love that you're talking about and thinking through systems, efficiencies, because that does help with the scaling piece
it
for sure.
really does. It really does. I'm just trying to find the best one that I like right now. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, I feel like it's your business and you build it to what you need, but you still have to accommodate your customers. And I may not be for everybody, right? Like, maybe me not being open on Wednesdays is not for you know what I mean? Like, because that person only has Wednesdays off, but that's where I come in and I'm like, hey, about 2 or 3 times a month I post, like, don't forget, we can shop by appointments, just message me. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's anybody um, that has come in, like, has made appointments and stuff with me, they will tell you that it's very easy. I'm a text message away, right? So, and usually if I can't that day, I will get to them the next day. It's pretty rare, unless we're out of town. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a few people around town that have keys that know how to run my things. So, I was
Perfect.
in Florida last week, and a woman needed some hair bows, some Underwood hair bows for a camp for her daughter. And I was in Florida, and she's like, "Oh," and I said, my mom's up cleaning my house right now. Let me message my mom. She has a key." And so she met my mom a little bit later. She grabbed several things for her daughter. So, like, we try to still be accommodating, right? Everybody's schedule is not everybody's schedule. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the important thing is just like what works, what works for where you're at. I would also say that like if you're in a big city, my hours would probably not work, right? We live in a small town. A lot of people work, a lot of people commute into town to work. Um, and so, like, that's what works for my small town, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to just weigh out where you're at, who your clientele are, and that's taken years, really. I mean, while I've always done it on the weekends, you're training your customers for all your things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And either they like it and they stay, or they don't and they find someone else, and like that's okay.
Right.
There is plenty of room for everybody.
I do love this conversation because, like, clearly you have a strong sense of authenticity and staying true to yourself and what your goals and values are, while still running a retail business,
Mhm.
right? And I love it. It's such a unique combination and good conversation here for so many people to be able to hear this and to feel encouraged that you can work a full-time, I'll air quote, traditional job. Or some people always a normal job. And I'm like, I'm not sure if anyone has a normal job, but
Right, right.
where you are in a more of a 9 to 5 or a set and run a very unique, no pun intended, business as well. And it just takes experimenting, right? And figuring out what works for you. And it doesn't have to look like everyone else. Also, love, I think you've really busted through a number of myths without us even really like saying it specifically of owning retail storefront business in small town.
Mhm.
And so many people will say that's not possible. You can't do it. And clearly, you can. And it might not look exactly the way everyone else's business looks, but it is possible. And so I just love that
Mhm.
about everything you've shared.
And it's not always pretty, and it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stick to it, and I think the biggest part of that I would add is that like you're open, and that you're open to evolve, because look at like I never would have thought that I would have had my second storefront
Mm-hmm.
in 8 years. Uh, really, I mean, if we want to talk about me dating my husband and all the things, it'd be 12 years. But starting off and where I am now, I just never would have thought. I've evolved from Ethel to,
Mm-hmm.
mind you, also in Underwood, this place that I had didn't have a bathroom, didn't have heat, didn't have air. So we had heaters and air conditioners running, and I was able to go to the bar, to the bathroom. So, I mean, like, we made it work. And I'm thankful for that. That woman, if I don't know where I would be, or where my business would be at that point if it weren't for her. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, like I've evolved into now what I have now, and I'm thankful for the Polys that own the building that I have now. I took a garage space. So you had asked, we talked about the space. So I took a garage space. So this building is the building that I originally was supposed to rent years prior. And these people purchased it and got some different like historic grants and have redone the building. Um, it was a hotel back in the day. Um, uh, Apparently, it was a brothel at some point. They had
Fun.
apartments. Like I've heard all the things. My space, particularly, was actually added on at one point. I don't know how long ago, but it had a janky garage door and some janky windows, and they've redone everything. It has a beautiful glass garage door that I can lift up and do events, or when it's really nice out, just have it open. Um, they've had to redo it, all the windows, all the everything. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all brick, other than the bathroom that they put in there. So we've taken that and did the best that we could. Still struggles because it's an old building. We couldn't put anything in the brick, so we had to make shift and figure that out. So my racks hang from the rafters with big chain link, which is kind of cool. It's also one of those things that like you have a vision in your head, and any woman is going to understand this. And then the man comes in and they're like, well, I think you should do this. And so we had a lot of interesting conversations when we were doing that. And I was like, this is what I want. And we made that happen. I've had some crazy trials and tribulations in this space. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but when I first opened, I was open for about a month, a little less than that, last fall. And the moisture, we have old building brick. So we had some dehumidifier running, and someone had come in and helped to put another one in, and there was not a plug on the back of it. So it ran water for 3 days in my new space. It was fixed, thank God. It was a mistake. It happened, but it super sucked. And then literally like almost a month to the day after that, in October 17th of last year.
The date sticks in your head.
I will never forget it. A very long story, but the short part of it was they were doing some work upstairs for the apartments or condo kind of that they were putting up there, and a water valve was put in, and when the water was turned onto the building, that valve was not shut off, so it flooded my space.
Okay, so everyone just pause and take note. Flooded your space with all of your inventory and merchandise.
Yes. From the ceiling down. Yeah. So I was really lucky on the side of like everything hanging from the rafters on like against the walls was not damaged, which would have been like my jeans, like a lot more expensive inventory. But everything in the middle, my cash register, like everything else was just, soaked. So it made me realize a few things. Number one, when we did insurance for the space, I was kind of guesstimating where I was. I knew I had more, but I was like, okay, we're going to get through fourth quarter and I'll have to do inventory, and then I'll go back and we'll insure for more. That was like the plan with the insurance person, right? And even then, at what I was insured at, I had called him back and said, let's do it for a little bit more, because I know I'm going to, with fourth quarter or whatever. And so it was all of my fourth quarter inventory. So we're talking about the busiest quarter for retail and holidays, right? It was not like all, but the majority was out. And so purchasing that at the time, like it's too late at that point, because remember, when I go to market, I'm purchasing 6 months ahead of time.
Right.
And so trying to find things, like that was my biggest struggle. And like, do I take this insurance money and I rebuy into stuff that it might sit, or do I kind of hold on to it and purchase as I can? The community surrounded me with gracious everything at that point, because I had an event planned that weekend. We cleaned up what we could, got rid of what was wet, and people still came that Sunday. So that happened on a Tuesday, I think. So I was like super happy for that, because I didn't want to cancel that event, But it also made me realize like I needed to be insured for more. I was good where I was, but I was very close to my cap. So, the backside of stuff with your business, right? Make sure you're insured. Make sure, kind of like we've had tornadoes come through our area, and, people's homes weren't insured for, what they could to replace them. So it's made us reevaluate a lot of different things. But like those back office type things, if you will, that you think you don't need, like you need.
Yeah.
Or the extra help that you think you might not need, you do. So that would be the other thing too, is, with the trailer and stuff, we had just the insurance that we needed, but I didn't have any of that. Like none of my inventory was insured all those years. So, and I was very lucky. But when I came into the spaces, it was like, okay, I'm in someone else's building. I need to make sure, that I have insurance and all those things. So,
Yeah, those businessy pieces, right? And I think so often talking with business owners, especially because so many, not all, but so many business owners fall into business, accidental businesses, I call them.
yeah.
Had an interest, kind of got started. Next thing I know, I had a business. Um, and so you leave behind the things that somebody who maybe takes a different approach and says, I just know I want to start a business. I don't know what it is,
Mhm.
but they tend to have a little more of that business mind of, okay, I'm going to need insurance. I got to figure out my taxes. I need a sales tax, the business setup. Those things can bite you in the butt later, right? So one of the things I'm trying to figure out right now is I do watercolor cards.
Yeah.
And so it's a side thing. Like it's not the main thing. Tandem work's still the main thing. But what is the tax category for greeting cards? Like, it's like this small thing that part of me goes, I'll just figure it out another day. I'll figure it out another day. And I'm like, no, because if I don't figure out the right tax category and then I'm taxing and yada, 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 right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's those things that you and I had talked a little bit. If you have no desire, I don't have really any desire to figure that out, honestly, but I want to sell the cards enough and I want to do it in a legit way enough. I like business enough
Right.
that I'm going to take the time to figure it out. But if that's not you, then it's okay. And business ownership is not for you,
Right.
right? And that's with zero judgment and no like finger pointing. But there is this side of business that I was going to ask you one of the biggest misconceptions about owning a boutique business.
Is
And
that
I already know where you're going. What would it be?
I think one of them is that we're rich,
Mm-hmm.
or have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can tell you that we're constantly putting money back in, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I'm very open in that sense. Like when certain people ask certain things, I'm like, oh, my boutique account has like $3,000 in it right now. And if it has
Mm-hmm.
less than two, I'm in trouble. Like,
Yes.
you know, because we're constantly putting back in. I might have had a $5,000 weekend and just paid a $3,000 credit card. I mean, or my rent, or my this, or my that. Um, that, and then I would say, on like a social scale of things, is that like when we were younger, the boutiques were kind of the higher end, the ritzy scaled, like, and some still are. Some still are.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on where you're at and where you go, right? But that, we're kind of ritzy or snotty, or, and I don't think that I'm that way. I don't, no one's ever told me that. So hopefully that's not a conception that somebody has, but, um, just more. I don't know. The biggest thing for me is that I want to be affordable, and I don't want the boutique name to be that it's not affordable.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say
Yeah.
that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. And again, depending on where you are, some of them might be different. But for me, I don't want somebody to not walk in my doors because they think that there isn't something for them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they can purchase. I have tops from $10 to $49.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. Yeah, and gosh, so many times it's like, oh gosh, if you own an ice cream shop, you must just love your life and eat ice cream every day. Like, oh, you own a boutique, you must just be shopping your boutique and, sipping coffee and
yeah,
laughing with, customers they come in. It's like, yeah, and there's this whole business side of it too, for sure.
all the rest of, yeah.
Yes.
And some things can kind of be outsourced. Like I have a CPA that does my taxes and stuff like that. But really, like I have my hands in almost everything because I don't want to have a surprise for something. And some people can turn all their stuff over to people and let them do it, and like, good for them. I hope I can get to that point at some point. But for me, like, I just want to know, like, I don't want any. I had a friend who also owned a boutique. Met her at market, love her to death. She sold her entire business about a year ago, like to the day, I think. Um, and she had a wholesale business as well. So she had wholesale and she had a boutique. And she had the best ideas, the greatest ideas. We would swap inventory. She was actually in Iowa. I would go and we would swap inventory with each other, and just a clean swap, like super nice to be able to do that with someone, right? But she would tell you this. Everything else was being put aside, and she had 2 young kids, and it got to the point for her, from my understanding, that if she wasn't there and she wasn't working it, the bills weren't getting paid, right? I would go up there every once in a while, help out and do different things, and like she had someone paying her bills for her, like that was paying, and like a card didn't go through, and she was like, oh, this person that owned the shop was not there. And the other person was like, oh, just pick a different card. And I was like, hold on a second. Like, no. Like, you can't just pick a different card. Like, you need to message her and find out what card she wants used. So she had, given that over to some people with trust. Like, that's your business. That's your livelihood, with trust. And they were just picking cards, like which one's going to work, and like I have different cards. Like I have cards for traveling. I have cards, for jeans. I have cards for everything else. I have cards. I mean, I do have different stuff. So I kind of know, like, I'm selling, I'm not selling. And it's a balance. It's a huge balance. And so, and I'm not saying, she failed because of somebody else, or like as a whole, she got out. She knew she got out when she needed to. Because of it was so much going on. But she realized too that like it was taking so much away from her family and so much away from herself. And so like even seeing those things and learning from that, like I learned so much from this woman. And we still talk. I still message her about certain things or want to pick her brain about different things. But yes, there's always like that misconception just that we just have money falling from the trees all over the place. And like I said, you don't see me driving a $300,000 vehicle or living in $1 million home, and some are, and that's great, but I'm not there.
Yeah. And everyone has different priorities for why they are running or, want to have a business. And for some, it is very much, some very specific monetary goals. For others, it's a lifestyle. For some, it's like a bit of a social outlet, which is part of what led to your business, right? Yep. So remembering those goals are so important. And then not having a business tailspin you out of those goals is, part of, I think what we're saying here too, is you may start for one reason, but then you can all of a sudden find yourself coming up for air, looking around going, how did I end up here? It's not to say that it's a bad thing. It just might not be on point for what your vision was, and you might have to realign.
And it happens a lot. Yes. Yeah. And I feel like too, like my business plan again is always evolving. It's always, I just started doing charm bars because that's the new thing. Yeah. I don't think in 3 years I'll still be doing charm bars, right? I didn't think, or another thing, there's a paint, a woman that does like a paint and sips and different things that has come into my space as well, or her own space, but the building that I'm in. And I was like, hey, I would really love to do something with you. And I was going to do a hat bar because that's another big thing that's big right now. But she paints, and I had seen some different things, and I was like, can you paint some stuff on these hats for me? So actually today I just posted the first one because it's Underwood's homecoming. And so I was like, hey, look what's coming. Like, this is really cool. So, working with those other people and like, that wasn't in my plan. I mean, working with people is always my plan, but
being flexible. Yeah. Watching for those things, being flexible.
I've always said that, like, if I'm not on trend in some way, shape, or form, then I'm not in business. And that's kind of why we named the boutique Unique Boutique, because I've sold Tupperware and Color Street and, shoes and bodysuits and makeup and, charm bar and, all the things. So it's kind of what whatever's trending is what you want to get into your shop. And as quick as it comes in, it might go out. And that's,
Yeah.
that's part of it too. So
That's awesome. So I usually wrap up with a couple of rapid fire questions. Are you game for that?
sure.
Just I'm going to go through these and just whatever comes to mind for you.
Okay.
Okay. So we talked about a couple of these. I'm going to skip a couple because we talked about, misconceptions, things like that. But if you were going to tell your younger self something, knowing what you know now, what is like one piece of advice you might give to your younger self?
In just a boutique world, or?
I think either way. You can take it either way. I do think people are very curious about the boutique world. So if one came to mind for you.
I would say, this could get long. I'm going to try to be really short. Like, don't be afraid to take up space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Trust your own journey. And like, biggest thing is like, stay true to you. Because if you lose yourself, which happens in our lives in general, we lose ourselves. But if you lose yourself in your why, then like, that's when people start to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's okay to be raw and real and true. And believe me, if you're on my page, you know I am. But like I've always said I'm not everybody's cup of tea because I'm not afraid to take up space, right? And that's hit me in a lot of different aspects of my life, not just a boutique. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Is there a song that you just have on constant replay, or a book or a podcast that inspires you just can't stop talking about right now?
So I would love to tell you that I read books. I can't tell you the last time I read a book. Music wise, I can't even tell you like one song. Something that my husband would tell you is that I literally listen to everything, like except for like hard metal. Recently, I've been listening to Alan Stone, like all the different collabs and stuff with Alan Stone.
Cool.
And then I don't know why they have the same last name, but Joss Stone. I just went to her concert a couple weeks ago here in Omaha. And so that's kind of how you know where my mood is too. Like if I need to chill out and like, I'm good. And then on other days I'll be listening to rap. So like,
yes, right.
Yeah. So I'm a mood person with music. So I don't really have one dead set anything right now. But
so then when you are listening to all this great music, do you have a favorite snack or kind of like a kick back and relax beverage?
My kickback and relax beverage is a squirt.
Nice.
I really love Ruby Red Squirt if you can find it.
Yeah.
You can find it everywhere.
That's pretty unique.
Otherwise, vodka is my drink of choice. And then snack wise, gosh, I don't even know. My husband's been getting ranch almonds. So I've been munching on those quite a bit.
Nice.
I'm not a big ice cream person, but everybody else in my family is. So they're always eating ice cream. So if I eat an ice cream, my husband's like,
whoa, I love ice cream.
Yeah.
Our little guy with us right now knows it too, and he likes ice cream. And so he knows how to play that up. And I'm like, I suppose we could do that.
And fruit snacks. I love fruit snacks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Jayme, when you think about what excites you about the future, what is it for you?
For the boutique is just like where it will be in 5 years, because I just don't, obviously you just don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will I still be there? Will I have my own space? I really, really badly I have my own space, but I want to own it.
Mm-hmm.
I want a building that I own.
That's awesome.
For the rest, like personally, family-wise and stuff, just watching my kids just grow and unfold into their little personalities and everything that they are, right? They're bits and parts of spicy that are me, and they're bits and parts of laid back that are my husband, right? So I think that's probably the biggest thing. They're just at ages where they're growing so much and doing so much that, like, I want to know where they're going to be. I don't want it
Yeah.
to go too fast, but I want to know where they're going to be. So
Very cool. Okay, last one for you, Jayme. What do you feel like business owners can do to make the world a better place?
this is another podcast, girl. So one of the biggest things that the Boutique Hub has taught, and like their slogan literally is community over competition.
Hmm.
So like that is just it. Like, I want everybody to just be open to working with others. You don't have to, not at the expense of your business ever, right? But like that is the epitome of my business. I want to be part of the community. I want to help the community. I want to be in the community. Yeah.
I love that. You're right. That can be a whole podcast all itself. Someday maybe I'll have a split off podcast that just is about how business owners can impact the world, because I think there are so many ways, whether it's through your local community, it's yourself, your family, generational change, if you have a team, employees, like there's give back initiatives. There's so many different ways, but this has been really fun. And I really like how you have talked so much about, taking care of yourself in that you're designing a business that works for your life. I think that's a different, just a whole different way of looking at a way of taking care of yourself while still being very busy. Like, in a sense, you've added on things and yet you're still prioritizing yourself. You're being authentic. And also being true to yourself. Like, I just think that has been kind of a running theme through everything, through floods and trailers, and starting with Mary Kay and polishing rocks all the way up to where you're at now.
Right.
That is just a theme that definitely runs through, as well as like making some mistakes or having disastrous things happen that are out of your control. I love all of that. So I really appreciate you sharing so much with us about your journey to Unique Boutique. And I am curious if people would like to reach out or they want to follow along, or maybe they'd like to purchase, see what you have, see if it's their style. How do they get connected with you in the boutique?
Yep. So, I'm ashamed to say that I just started the Instagram. I know.
Awesome.
I know. I had one a while ago and I never really did much with it. So my plan is to get posting more on there, and it's just at shop U, like the letter U, B, like boy, and then Iowa spelled out. On Facebook, it's also it's Unique Boutique Iowa. I have 2 pages. I have the business page, which is like the Facebook business page, and then I have the VIP page. So
awesome.
That's where I post every single day, and you'll see different things throughout the week that you can purchase. Or if you don't like any of those things, you're not on Facebook, my website is www.shopubiowa.com.
Perfect. And we'll link everything, of course. With the VIP page, anything they have to do to be a VIP, or is it just a...
Nope, they just join. It's something that you actually have to join. On the pages, you can like the page and you're automatically following them. This is one of the groups. It is an open group. It's not a private group, but you do have to join it.
Awesome.
And then make sure that you go to the 3 little dots at the top and go to notifications, or I think it's a bell now. And go to the notifications, and don't just get highlights, because Facebook is amazing and they kind of decide who gets to see what. So you want to click sees all things.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'll only see, like, if somebody comments 50 times on something, that's the only post that you're going to see. So,
and then it will be gone and sold, and you won't have a chance at it. So,
right.
Yes, if you want to know like what's happening or coming, and you want to be first in line, then clearly you need to have your notifications on.
And then I also, any events that I do, we post out on Unleash CB. So you can go there. I do have some fall things coming up. So we always do a trick or treat at the boutique.
Awesome. Cute.
So that'll be fun. It's a bag. You purchase a bag and you get to pick from tables of different things and put so many things in the bag. And then usually there's some coupons and things for you to use. So that's one thing that I did last year that I'll do again this year. So, and then we kind of try to get out in the community a little bit more into, I still do a few events. So we'll be at the Underwood Craft Show we go to every year, and, some other things too. So
awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Jayme, and for sharing and being willing to share like your full story. I just think it's so inspiring for people to hear how a business owner got where they're at and where they're going. Like, that journey is not done. And I really think that this has been a unique conversation, and how you have, arrived there and how you've grown. And I think you mentioned that early on, that you really feel like you have grown as a person, and that's super awesome.
I think more so in the last probably like year and a half, I don't know why. I'll figure that out at some point. I think part of it's age, honestly. The kids are getting into different stages too. My oldest is in middle school now, and so, she's getting older, and friends are changing and things are changing, and my husband's professionally grown in his thing with the road team, and so he's traveling away from us and things like that. And my job, I went from teaching to, being out in the community more, doing more community-based things, and still being in the schools with the kids, but just a little bit different atmosphere. So I think it's, it's a lot of things. And then just the boutique world is changing. We ran a lot of things on Facebook for so many years, and now Facebook isn't. I love Facebook. Don't kick me off. I love Facebook, but you can't put all your eggs in one basket. So just having to learn all the different things, and that's helped me with really everything that I'm doing right now, between the boutique, the personal life, my kids on social media, all those things. So yeah, it's been.
I love it. It's a journey for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing yours, Jayme. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, these are always great conversations. Hey, great conversation with Jayme. I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to get to hear her story. And that's really what it's all about here on Writing Tandem, is hearing the stories of business owners and people thinking about starting a business, or maybe in a leadership position where they have a very entrepreneurial spirit. So glad you were here today. Hey, I just wanted to point out to you that if you have a story that you think would be awesome to share here on the Writing Tandem podcast, I would love to hear from you. So if you are a business owner, or maybe you know a business owner, or you're an expert who helps business owners in achieving their goals and dreams and building the life that they want, I would love to hear from you. So be sure to look for the information to contact and reach out to me and the team here at Tandem Works. And let's have a conversation and see if it's a good fit for you to hop onto the podcast. I'm also going to point out that I'm looking for some opportunities to be able to hop onto some other people's podcasts as well. So I would love to be a guest if that's a good fit for a podcast you're aware of and you're willing to throw my name into the hat. That's awesome. Or if you have a podcast, I would love to chat about that as well. And then last up for you, of course, it's so helpful when you leave a review or a comment or a thumbs up or 5 stars. And even more amazing is if you would like to hop onto my email list and just hear from me. I send out an email about once a week, and it either has some information about the most recent podcast and some thoughts expanded there, or the email will have some inspirational encouragement for you in wherever it is that you are in your journey. One of the things I love about the people who hop onto the email list is that we do start to build an actual connection and have conversations. So often people will reach out and reply back to emails, and I, of course, always reply back to you. So I would love to see you there, and I will catch you on the next episode of Writing Tandem.